and the bass synth that they engineered for this thing is so fat. It's big.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%. It's like a sumo wrestler just like falling on the ground, just like boom.
Yeah, exactly. That's
What's up, everybody? Welcome to EDM Chatters, the news show covering everything that's been happening in our industry this week. From brand new tracks to sensational stories and topics that matter, we're here to fill you in.
I am one of your hosts, Vincent Beck, producer here at EDM Matters, and with me, as always, is the LA Beard Guy and the host of EDM Matters, Matthew Meadow. And today we have a special show for you all because it's the EDM Chatters Top 10 Albums of 2020. As industry leaders, we've taken it upon ourselves to rank the best albums that came out this year. And it's been a busy, packed year, Matt.
It has. I mean, I wish there were some albums that came out that didn't, like Porter Robinson.
Nurture
would have been really cool. Skrillex, if that album that we've been waiting for came out, that would have been awesome.
Pendulum.
Pendulum. We've been waiting for a Zoo album as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there were a lot of things that didn't go quite right this year. But on the bright side, we still had so much good music come out this year. And we're going to tell you a little bit about some of our favorites. So at number 10 is Ex Machina from Metrik. So this is Metrik's, I believe it's his third album. Let me confirm that really quick. It is his third album. And Metrik has been one of my favorites for a long time, been releasing on Hospital Records. And while Ex Machina isn't my favorite album of his, that would be Life Thrills. It's still a phenomenal album and one that definitely deserves your attention. From the album, my favorite track was Hackers, which is one of the earliest singles on the album. And it has that sort of bouncy drum and bass rhythm. And it feels a little bit different than the regular, sort of drum and bass track. And that's really what I like about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is actually kind of like my first introduction to Metrik. I haven't really listened to any of their music before, but it's like this epic 13-track album that just ranges from like, I mean, it's mostly drum and bass, but it's just heavy, like in certain parts, ambient in others,
Mm-hmm.
and it's definitely not one to miss. And we highly recommend it. And for me, the titular track Ex Machina is so good. It's one of my favorite tracks on that album.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole album is worth listening to for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Next up at number 9, Infected Mushroom with More Than Just a Name. I don't know what number album they're on. They have done so many albums since their debut in 1999, but More Than Just a Name is their, what is it? I believe that's their second album on Monster Cat since Head of NASA and the Two Amish Boys, which is a great album name. That
That's
came out in
so good.
2018. But yeah, this one came out this year, and they really threw it back to their psytrance roots, especially getting guys like Asterix and Space Noise on the album. Like, it's absolutely fantastic. But again, one of their early singles, Ani Meshuval, nearly 9 minutes of just absolutely raw Infected Mushroom sound. It has all of their hallmarks. It's got the gritty guitar, the psytrance synths, the sort of bouncy rhythm, Duvdev's vocals, and it's just everything you want in a Infected Mushroom track, and it's just 9 minutes of bliss, which is funny because that's who's on the track with them. So zing. But yeah, I love it.
Yeah, most definitely, man. And I love how we have Infected Mushroom on this list. I mean, when we became friends in college and started, you were like showing me a lot of music at that time. Infected Mushroom came up so many times, and it's cool we can connect on this. And like you said, the familiar, just like mastery of sound engineering from Infected Mushroom is all over this album. And Splacon is actually my favorite track from this album. It's goes with that psytrance vibe, and it's just so fun and vibey of a track that that I love from it.
It's almost a little funky too.
Yeah,
It's got sort of like, it's definitely a bit of a side trance, but it almost has that like kind of funky.
yeah, it has that like triplet time signature to it,
Yes.
and it does this thing where like it really builds up toward the end, and it has this amazing like psytrance like outro, and I actually like to work to it. It's like good focusing music, and yeah.
Working out, I'll also say it's great for meditation. When this, I think it was either, I think it was this album when it first came out earlier this year. I just laid on my like floor next to my bed and just kind of vibed for like an hour.
Yeah.
So
I think that's just expected from an Infected Mushroom album. So everyone go listen to More Than Just a Name.
Absolutely. Next up, number 8, Muzz, The Promised Land. This has been a really long-awaited album for me. I've been listening to Muzz, formerly known as Muzzy, on Monster Cat for years, and this debut album is a culmination of a lot of things in his career, but it's finally out, came out earlier this year on Monster Cat, the second Monster Cat album on this list. And one of my favorite tracks on it is Salvation with Bloodhounds. And I can't, like, I'm sure this wasn't his intention, but I can't really get away without saying that there's a lot of influence from Pendulum on this album, from both Immersion and from In Silico. Not so much from Hold Your Color. I think that sort of brand of drum and bass has long since, let's call it antiquated. It's out of style, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, extinct. It's just not what we're all listening to at the moment. But Salvation with Bloodhounds is definitely Pendulum-esque. Like, it has those massive drums. It has the sort of driving pulse of the track, and the Bloodhounds vocals are actually fairly similar to Rob's. So, I mean, if you're looking to scratch your pendulum itch, if Driver and Nothing for Free haven't scratched that itch, definitely listen to Promised Land.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It does have a lot of Pendulum influences throughout the whole album. For me, I especially loved the Sanctuary track off this album. It's, I think, the only down-tempo, like industrial down-tempo song from the whole thing. And I'm just a huge fan of that style of track. But that said, the whole album is like this like bass head journey that Muzz takes you on.
Absolutely. And I'm listening to it now, and that like down tempo, like just kind of like gritty, almost like futuristic synth work is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But you want to introduce the next one?
All right, Matt, at number 7, we have Joyryde's Brave. It's this 18-track like odyssey of house and bass music, and it's also Joyryde's 2020 debut on Hard Records.
Yeah.
I'd say it's like this eclectic album featuring a bunch of like house and trap tracks, and it definitely doesn't disappoint for me. I really liked On Fire. It's kind of like a tropical house but bass house mix, and it just has that familiar Joyride signature sound where he just uses a bunch of different like percussion samples. It's not your typical house track.
No, definitely not. But like that's what Joyride is all about, is that he isn't your typical house artist, and he definitely elevates bass house to this new level, pinnacle, whatever you want to call it, pedestal. But I completely agree with you. On Fire is one of the best albums on the track. Best tracks on the album. Ugh.
It's a
But
Saturday.
it's a Saturday, whatever. But my favorite track on the album is definitely be Damn, the bonus track, because this has been one like, and I guess this is kind of a cop out because this isn't like an album track. This is added to it after, because this was actually a YouTube exclusive. This wasn't on SoundCloud or Spotify before, but they finally got the rights to it. But this has been one of my favorite Joyryde tracks for a long, long time, and I'm happy that it finally got onto an album on streaming services. And now that I can finally listen to it all I want, this is definitely the one that I'm just like, yes, that. You get what I mean? You get it? You get it? Damn. Yeah. Damn. Damn, Joyryde. Damn.
It definitely has that like, it definitely has this like unique vibe to it that kind of reminds me of like Ausla as a whole. It's just so 100%. Far removed from like EDM as a whole, and you kind of get that through this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that track was definitely released in the Ausla era before it sort of fizzled out. So I definitely see what you're talking about. But yeah, Brave is an album that we've all been waiting for a long time. It was pushed back multiple times, and so when it was finally released earlier this year, it definitely hit the sweet spot. But enough about that. We're still going on our top 10 list. At number 6, it is Planets Mad by Baauer. Now, I was not that big a fan of Baauer's debut album AA back in 2016. Listening back to it now, there are good parts of it, but I'm still not that enamored with it. But Planets Mad, man, is just, it's mad. It's absolutely mad. And so my favorite track is Reach Up, Don't Stop. And it's this almost like salsa-esque trap track. And it has these very tribal drums and this chanting vocal, just reach up, don't stop. And it's such a phenomenal dance track, but with this like incredible energy around it. Like you can't really like, as much as I can talk about it, you can't really think about it until you listen to it for yourself and experience it. It's just such a unique track on the album, and I'm so happy that he released it as part of this project.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's this whole Planets Mad album. It's really hard to describe, and this is kind of like my first introduction to Baauer's music. I'd say it's like a super bass heavy album that tries to like, it doesn't really fit into one mold or like convention. But it's just like the synthesis of masterful, like mix of percussion and sound engineering. Mm-hmm. And for me, I really liked Home, that featured Bipolar Sunshine. Again, I can't really describe to you what like genre it fits into, but I'd say it's one of the more chiller tracks on the album, and I mean, it as a whole is pretty bombastic and bassy, but Home is really like hold back, and like it gives you like a little like break and like breath of fresh, like not fresh air, but just like a pause in the whole thing.
Yeah,
you know?
I get what you mean.
Yeah,
absolutely. Moving on, Butterfly Effect from Koven. So when I first read about this album, it was being called their debut album, which confused me a little bit because they have 2 other albums, Hereinafter and Retrospective. But if you look on their Twitter, they call it their debut album. So that's what we're going to go with. I mean, who are we to argue with the artists themselves, right?
For sure.
Exactly. Now, this is definitely a wild album. They push the envelope so hard on this one. And a lot of it is drum and bass, but a lot of it is also different styles of bass music. So my favorite from the album is Shut My Mouth, which is one of the non-drum and bass tracks on the album. It's so, I want to say like effervescent. It is just, it's so choral. I can't even think of the word. But you know what? I'll just keep. It's fine.
Just go with that.
The basic idea of it is it's just this like heavy track, and it's slow. It's a lot like the Sanctuary from The Promised Land by Muzz. It's in that same sort of vein where it's a drum and bass album, but it's sort of changing direction a little bit, and it's a little bit dubstep. It's a little bit mid tempo, but definitely not one to miss. And it's like about a third of the way through the album. No, a little less than halfway. So it gives you that sort of climactic appeal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And again, this is kind of like my first like introduction to Koven. And let me bring up my notes. And Matt, this is my question to you, because we have yet another kind of like a drum and bass kind of centric album. But like,
yes.
What is it about drum and bass artists that, like, I don't know what it is, but they make really, really good dubstep for some reason. You know what I mean? Like,
I do know what you mean.
They just like throw it in there, and you're like, "What's happening?" Like,
no, absolutely. Now that you mention it, like drum and bass artists, when they do go like super bass heavy, I don't know what it is. I think it's either the synths or like just I'd have to ask a drum and bass artist because I couldn't tell you, but I 100% agree with you. Yeah.
So, this album is basically like the embodiment of that question. And Max Rowett and Katie Boyle, they're like this dynamic duo that really pushes the envelope for this whole album. And Followers is my track pick for the whole album, or from the whole album. And it's just one of those dubstep tracks where the drop just like pushes the bass so hard, and so heavy, and it's at near the beginning of the whole album, and it just kind of like sets this precedent where Koven's vocals just come through so well and matches so well. Yeah,
it's mixed so well, and Katie does a phenomenal job with her vocals. Like, there's a reason that she's the front woman for the act. It's because she gets out there and she sings her heart out.
Yeah.
100%. The next one is Slow Magic with It's the End of the World, But It's Okay. And this album came out this past week. So
just in time.
Yeah. By and large, the most recently released album on our list. And I love Slow Magic, but Vince loves Slow Magic even more.
Yeah, Matt. I don't remember where or when I discovered Slow Magic. I guess it might have been like 2015 or something. But hey, we're talking about this album. This is, I believe, his fourth album to date. It doesn't disappoint. The masked drummer brings his signature percussive style layered with, his dreamy synths. And, despite the name of the album, it's the end of the world, but it's okay. It's a feel good album. And one of my picks from the album is Carry On featuring Paper White. And it carries Carry On. It has the signature Slow Magic sound, and it has such a positive vibe to it. And you can really chill out to this entire album. I recommend it to everybody. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, if you're feeling like this year has been tough on you, like it has on all of us, listen to this album and just kind of think about stuff for a while, or don't think about stuff. Whatever. I can't tell you what to do. Anyway, moving on. Definitely one of my absolute favorite albums of the year. Number 3, Renaissance from Apashe. This is Apashe's ability to mix classical orchestral music with bass music is one of, if not the best in the game. And this album takes it to a whole new level. But that being said, my favorite track on the album is the rowdiest Russian EDM crossover track I have ever fucking heard. It's Webok Gotta Run. And this track is just, it starts out with such, I mean, it does have those orchestral elements. It starts out with that, string arrangement, but then Instasamka comes in with the Russian vocals. And I don't know about you, Vince, but for me, whenever I hear vocals in a different language, it's less about what they're saying and more about the notes, the cadence. Like the voice just becomes another instrument in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with Instasamka on this, it just melds so well with the trap horns. And it's just the sort of like higher register on the vocals is definitely something that makes it memorable. But what makes this track even more memorable is that the first 2 minutes are just the first 2 minutes of the build, and then the 43 seconds at the end is the drop. And it's this like hype, this bouncy hard house track, and it's like nothing I've ever heard, and I love it so much.
Most definitely, and that pretty much describes this whole album for me. I've like so many other artists on this list, this is my kind of first kind of taste of Apashe, and I really liked Lord and Master because I feel like this whole album kind of like is creating this new genre of like orchestral dubstep or something, or orchestral bass music, and it has like these fluttering like violin strings and like the the verse or the pre-chorus or whatever, and once the drop happens, like you get bellowing French horns and like huge choirs that resonate throughout like the whole like drop, and you're just like, what is happening, what's going on here? And I'd say this is one of like the coolest bass like albums of the year.
Absolutely, 100%. Like, and like he has Tech 9 on this album, like that alone.
Yeah,
like are you crazy? Are you kidding me? Like,
yeah,
okay, like all right, dude, cool. But I mean, another album that I showed you recently that you really fell in love with was Steve Aoki's Neon Future 2, our number 2 album of the year.
Yeah, definitely. This kind of came out of nowhere for me. I mean, we were like, trading albums, doing our research, doing our homework for this, and going through this whole album, it was just like, dude, how did Steve Aoki bring kind of like I feel like it's his like the magnum opus of EDM and pop all at once, because the collabs on this is freaking ridiculous. Like, like freaking Iconopop, will.i.am, Sting, Zooey Deschanel, and Matthew Coma, right?
Yeah.
And the freaking Backstreet Boys lending their vocals, and then to further the collab train, we have Timmy Trumpet, Show Tech, Slushy, Bass Jackers, to bring their signature sounds into the whole album, just to name a few. And
yeah, I mean, we can keep going. I mean, I'll give it a couple more. Travis Barker, Designer. You already said Mike Shinoda, yeah?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park. So, I mean, just this album is absolutely loaded, and it's 27 freaking tracks.
Yeah, it's big.
It is. This is a beefy album.
Mm-hmm.
This is beefy.
And for me, it like I really love the Icona. Like for me, the I Love My Friends Iconopop track is my favorite track from the album. I don't know what it is, but it just like brings me back to like early 2010s, like festival house, like Swedish house, like big festival music. And you have like the names like Show Tech and Bass Jackers bring it. Like, I mean, I've never been like a huge fan of festival like house, but like after such a rough 2020, this like was like a super positive like album to listen to like all the way through for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't know about like, I really loved the Slushy collaboration. It is,
Yeah.
dude. It is. It's just such intense, just like hard electro, and it's just bouncy and electrifying, and it makes you want to dance. And it's just like, yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know, man. It's there's such a different vibe for every track on this album, and just like it hits every taste bud.
It has something for everybody, and
really
like you have to
does.
respect Steve Aoki for that, right? Like,
Yeah, like
it's
if
incredible.
whatever you think about Steve Aoki, just give this album a try, and like you'll find something that you like. I almost guarantee it.
Hmm.
But that brings us to our number one album of the year. And it is, drumroll please, 10,000 Feet and Rising from the Prototypes.
Whoo!
Now, if you'll allow me to monologue for a moment, I first got this album in, I think it was March of this year as a promo, and I listened to it almost daily, weekly at least. And it finally came out in October, about 7 months after I first got it. And having just like absorbed it for so long, this like that could definitely be a part of why it's my favorite album. But it's just so freaking good. Every track gives you an ebb and flow sort of feeling with massive highs and then really soft lows. You have a lot of liquid and ambient sounds with a lot of really, really hard sounds. And my ultimate favorite track on this album, which might be my favorite track on any of the albums we've listed, is Paradise. And this track is quite simply just like if Gus Applestein was a bass producer.
Mm-hmm.
It is so absolutely just intense and suspenseful, with LX just like screaming, "It's paradise, it's paradise, it's paradise." And then the tone of the track absolutely flipping that sentiment on its side and just hitting you with this incredibly gritty electro bass line. The whole thing is just a fucking masterpiece, honestly. Like, I've listened to that track the most out of any on this album. I've probably run it into the ground, but I will continue to do that until the day I die.
Yeah, man. And I remember when I don't know if we reported on this album like in a previous EDM Chatters episode when like the album actually came out, but
I feel like I must have.
You probably did. Industry leader of all drum and bass of all time, you know. But I really like Shadows.
Yeah,
I think it's the second track on the album, but
Shadows.
features Lily McKenzie, and that like the first time I listened to it, that drop was just, it's so big. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know what they did, but it has every like I don't know. It's just like a masterful track of a masterful like drum bass track, and the bass synth that they engineered for this thing is so fat. It's big.
I agree.
Like, yeah,
100%. It's like a sumo wrestler just like falling on the ground, just like boom.
Yeah, exactly. That's one way to describe it. Like, it has like this growl to it. It's so like aggressive.
Yeah.
Right.
But I love that build to it too. The dun, 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 dun. Like that is just it's so catchy and such a phenomenal way to build that tension. Like honestly, I could say that any of these tracks are my favorite on this album. I love this one so much.
Yeah.
But you can check out all the tracks that we've talked about and more in our EDM Matters Top Albums 2020 playlist. That does it for EDM Chatters, though. I hope you enjoyed our ramblings and maybe learned a new artist or two. Don't forget to like and comment on this video and subscribe to our channel if you want more exciting EDM content from us. We will see you in the next one. Peace, everybody.
Later, guys.